Alright, so before we start with the rendering of this, what I want to do is, let's say if we want to create like a countdown clock. So what I can do is, we'll do a little bit of coding. Okay, so the first thing is like, we'll do it in here itself. So we have this text with us. So as we had seen, like if we type in at time and put it into backticks, then what happens is you get it in decimal places, right? So it does this. If you want this to be in integers, like if you want it like 1, 2, 3, 4, then you can put it into an integer. So type int and then put time inside that. And so what that will do is you will get 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Now what we want is we wanted to go in reverse. So we'll take a 9 minus. Okay, so we take like the existing number. So we'll get 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So there you go. So that gives you like a countdown. And what we'll do before that is we'll do like a 0, like to make it look like a clock, we'll do like a 0:0. So what that will do is it will give you something like this. So you'll get like a decent little countdown clock. So if we see this, if I just bypass the animation temporarily, and if we come to the copy, now it's not filling in, so let's just make the grid slightly bigger. So we'll get it up to about say 14. Let's do 14, and then we'll also increase the grid density. So let's make this about 70 by 70. Yeah, there you go. So that's good enough. Okay, and yeah, let's take the transform, like we had some problem here. Yeah, there you go. So this is fine. Okay, so if we play this, you'll get like a decent little countdown clock. And this is like if you're doing it for news, you want it to be in actual seconds. So this is, you're starting at 9 seconds. So it will be like a full 240 frame animation. If you want it to sort of come and go, we'll have to sort of manually animate it. Okay, like what we'll have to do is let's delete this. Okay, like let's delete that. We'll do delete channel. And so we will start at 0. We'll start at like minus whatever. We'll do like an alt click. And we'll come to about say 6 frames and bring it up to 0. So it'll come in. And then we'll come to, because it will change at the 24th frame. So we'll come to about 17 and keep it steady till 17. And then go back to 24. And take it back to say minus 0.4. Like what were we at? Okay, yeah, minus 0.4. So it comes up and then it goes back again. And then you sort of repeat it. Okay, so we'll have to sort of manually animate it, coming and going. So again, we can come in here. I'll bring this up to 0 again. Okay, so what we'll get is it'll go down. And then see it comes up again, and then again keep it steady, and then bring it, go to minus 0.4. Yeah, I think minus 0.4 is a little less. Let's make it minus 0.5 because you can still see it a little bit. So minus 0.5. Yeah. So yeah, so you'll have to do like a little bit of manual work over there. But yeah, so that way you can just, like animate it for 10 frames. Let's also do one thing. I want to give it a little bit of spacing. So let's come in here and we will increase the tracking in the x-axis. Yeah, not that much. Let's make it 0.05. Yeah, so you get a little bit of spacing in there. Yeah, so there you go. So you can sort of manually animate it and, have it come up and down. But there you go, that's like the basic of it. Okay, now let's render this because that's what I want to do with this one. So let's also take the overall scale, we'll get it to 0.7. Yeah, I think that's good. Okay, so what I want to do first of all, let's call this clock. Okay, so let's first make a grid. So we'll give it like a base. Okay, so I'll just do control click here. And we'll create a grid and then make it really big. So we'll make it about that big. So this forms like a ground for us. And let's call this floor. And Yeah, let's also set up a camera. So I'll come in a little bit closer. Yeah, so let's just, come in slightly close to this. If you want, you can make it bigger. So it sort of, goes outside the boundaries. But for now, this is fine. So I'll just create a new camera, which is, by default, it makes it at 1280, 720. So if you come to the camera, you'll see like it's 1280, 720 by default. Okay, and let's just, zoom in a little here. Okay, now the first thing is let's set up an environment light. I want to light this up using an HDR. So I'm going to take an environment. So type an environment light and you'll get an environment light. And if you set here to this button, you will light up, it will use the HDR to do lighting. And you can right click on this and turn on ambient occlusion and also turn on reflections. So, it'll give you a slightly better result. Now, the HDR I'm going to use is a free HDR and you can download it from here. Like if you come to Google and do a search for free studio HDR or free HDR studio, then you will get this link, which is Hdr Pack by ZBYG on DeviantArt. And he has like 3 zip files for HDRs. I think one of them doesn't work anymore, but there are 2 of them which are perfectly fine. So these are quite nice, like I use them quite often. So I'm going to use one of these. I think Hdr Pack 2 and 3 are still available for download. These are pretty old, but one might have some issues. But anyway, so you can get it from here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is you can click on environment light and I'll pick up Studio 32. Let's see what we get with that. Yeah, so we have something. But let's put in a material on this so we can actually see it. Okay, so press tab and take material network. And we need 2 materials. We need one for the floor, just for reflection. And then we want another one for this. Okay, so press tab and take type principal shader, PRIN. See there, so you get principal shader. What we want is the principal shader core. Like I don't want the full one right now. So I'll just take the principal shader core. And let's call this as floor, and I'll do Control C, Control V, and let's call this as text. So the floor goes here, just do a drag drop, and the text comes to this guy, and they're usually like pretty big, so you can just sort of minimize it. This one we need the whole thing, but I don't need like the opacity or any of this other stuff, so we just want this much. Okay, so by default, let me just check. Yeah, this doesn't do anything because if you take the normal principal shader, it has the inbuilt option to pick up color, like point color by default. But I don't want to do that because I want to show how you can build it. So which is why I took the principal shader core. The last thing is we need to set up the render engine. So press ROPNet, come in here and take mantra. And I'm going to set it to, if you come to rendering, I usually like using the physically based renderer. It'll be a little difficult for me to explain the difference between the two, but usually I use this. It's a little more accurate, I think. Anyway, so we'll keep it to this, and I'll deal with the render settings later. Like for now, I'll just hit a render. So come to Window, New Floating Panel, right click, Render View, and let's just set up a render. So we should get to see something. Like since we've assigned the materials, we'll get to see something. Yeah, so by default it goes into like a preview mode, and there you go. Okay, let's do one thing. Let's make it slightly smaller in render size. So I'm going to stop this. You can do it on the fly, but I'll just make it smaller. I'll make it like 960 540. Yeah, there you go. Okay, so let's just set up the basic material for the floor first. Let's do one thing. Let's turn off the clock. And if you select the floor and you come to render, you'll see like the material you assigned. You can click on that small arrow next to it. That will take you to the shader. So what I want to do is I want it more reflective. So what you can do is you can just get the metallic to 1 or like the metallic to be slightly higher. Yeah. And also lower the roughness so I can see my reflections. Yeah, there you go. So now you can see the reflections. Yeah, let's do one thing. What am I taking here? Give me a second. Yeah, let's change that. I'll click there. Let me just select something. So turn off show sequences because we want to select like individual lights. So hold on. So if I come down, see the things called Studio. Yeah, so these are the ones that I have downloaded. Let me try to take Studio 16. Let me see what that gives me. Yeah, I think this will be nice. Like you can rotate it from here if you come to transform and just sort of spin it around. Yeah, hold on. The one I usually use is like Studio 18. Like that's the one I tend to use most because it gives me like nice reflections. It has like one primary light. Yeah, let me just bring back the clock and see what we're getting. Okay, hold on. Let's see if we can get it from that angle. Yeah, there you go. That looks better. Okay, so first things first, let's blur the reflection a little bit more for the floor. So we'll come in here and I will blur this reflection a little more. Yeah, that's better. And if we increase the color, it'll become, shinier, but I don't think we want it more shiny. Actually, yeah, that's not bad. Okay, so this is good. So our floor material is done. Like if you turn off this button, that's for like interactive preview and it'll do a proper render. So there you go. That's your proper render. Okay. Which is clean enough. Like this is not a very complex render. So it shouldn't, like you might not have to touch the base settings. It should give you a clean enough render at this level itself. Okay, so now comes the part that we are interested in, which is we need to bring in this color into our text shader, or the other option would be I want to bring in the A attribute and then use that to control a gradient, so we can give whatever color we want. Like you can change the color as well, but let's say if we just want to like have a gradient here that we can use. Let me just move this out a little and zoom in a little bit. Okay, so let's turn on the preview again. Yeah, no, let me just zoom out a bit. Okay, so now what I can do is, let me stop this and type in, like the rules are the same. Like this is going to work exactly like the WAP network. Okay, like what we had done in the previous lesson. So press tab and type in bind, and bind will get you the ability to import parameters, import attributes. Okay, so what you do is, what we want is color. So color is CD, and set this to 3 floats because color is 3 floats, and just connect this to the base color of the text. That's basically it. Okay, like if you just want to bring in the color, that's it. You don't need to do anything else. Okay, like if I just connect this now, and what we will get is, the minute it starts rendering, but there you go. So whatever color we had there is now set up here. Let me just, let me increase the reflectivity of this and lower the roughness, so it's a little more shiny. Yeah, so this is about bringing in the color, and this is like a live link, right? So if I just come in here, if I take this color and I change it to something, okay, yeah, sometimes it does not do, yeah, hold on a second. Yeah, so just, if I change this to like blue or something, you'll see the change happen right there. Okay, see. So that is something that you can do, which is not a bad idea. But let's say what we want is, we don't want to bring in this color. Let's say we want to bring in the A attribute and then use that to control multiple things. Like maybe we want to control the reflectivity. Like maybe we want, like, this should be more reflective and the black dot should not be reflective at all. Okay, or something like that. Okay, so what I can do is, let's say if we come into the material again, and let's keep this to a side. What I can do is I can take, I'll take another bind, and this time we're just going to bring in A, okay, which was the name of our attribute. And then I'm going to connect this to a ramp. So type in ramp and you'll get ramp parameter. And let's call this as specular. So I'll connect this to input, and we want to control the, let's say we want to control the reflectivity. Yeah, just give me 1 second. Let me hit a render here. I just want to see what we are getting. Yeah, it takes a little bit of a time to kick off, but yeah, let me just bring this up. and lower the roughness a lot. Okay, so we're getting like the reflection on it, which is good. Now let's say what we want to do is the reflection should only come on the text and not on the black dot. So let's see, if I make reflectivity 0, what do we get? It should remove the reflection options. See, so this is not reflecting at all now. So what we want to do is we want to use this ramp to control the reflection. Okay, like that is the reflectivity. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'll turn this into, you can take it into a spline ramp, which will give me a numeric value, and I'll connect this into reflect. And if I have done it right, what you will get is that the dots below will have no reflection and this will have reflection. So those dots are not reflecting. See, those are completely, blank the way they are. Let me just rotate the environment light a little more. If I can bring it, what happens if I rotate it this way? Okay, that's not bad. Let me just lower that a little bit. So yeah, this is fine. Yeah, okay. Wow, that's a bit much, but okay, for our purpose right now it's okay. So let's also take the other material and make it slightly less reflective than it is at the moment. So I'm going to take this and lower reflectivity. Oh, sorry, it's metallic, it won't work. Yeah, just take the base color and make it darker. Like get it down to about there. So it's like really less reflective. Yeah, perfect. There you go. So that finally stands out. So see, so now the dots are not reflective and the floor is not really reflective. Only the text is reflective. And then let's say along with this, I also want to control the base color, but with like a custom gradient. So I can just take another ramp parameter and we'll call this color and connect this in there, connect that to base color. Sorry, not metallic, base color. And so what this will allow us to do is you can have like a custom control here. So now we have like a full proper gradient at this level, which I can then, color it whichever way I want to. See, so I want these to be, I don't know, like a dark red or something. I could probably try that. Maybe, yeah, that's a weird color. Yeah, that's fine. Anyways, so that being the whole thing. And because like this is animated, if I bring it down here, you'll see the whole thing change. Hold on, let's see at what point are we animating this. Yeah, there you go. See, that should make a change. See, so as this animates, you'll see it sort of come up and go. Yeah, and then if I come here, it should change the number. Let me try and get the reflection on the number. Okay, so let me try to rotate it a bit more. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, there you go. That looks, finally that looks good. So this is essentially it. So this is how you can set up materials. Okay, now let's do the final thing, which is how to render this. Okay, because eventually you want to render this. Okay, so in order to set up the render, the problem is I don't use Mantra very often now, because I kind of most days I use Octane and then sometimes I use Redshift. So I actually I'm a little out of touch with Mantra nowadays. Okay, but yeah, so what you do is you come into ROPNet, and if you come to images and output, okay, and there it gives you the option, yeah, there you go, output picture. Okay, and the way it will work is you want to give it, like let me just create a new folder here. Let's call it clock. This is very important. You see this $F4. So this is kind of like if you use nuke kind of uses the same thing. So this is for sequence. Okay, like if you don't give it like the $F4, it's just going to render one image and keep overriding everything on that same image. So the $F means that it'll render every frame sequentially. The 4 is the number of zeros that it puts. Okay, so if you do $F3, you will get like 0001. If you put like $F4, you'll get 00001. So how many zeros you want is what the number is for. Okay, so I can just call it like clock $F4 dot, let's say it's a JPEG. Okay, so do a JPEG. So there you go. So that is what will render, and then change this to render frame range. So it will render the whole thing. Okay, and just do render to disk. Okay, and let me do a smaller render just to show you if it's working or not. Okay, so I'm going to take the camera, bring this down to 640, 360. So it's like really tiny. And let's come into ROPNet. Let me save this file. I'll make this file available. So you'll have to I won't put the HDR with it, just download it, from the link I showed you. Okay, so just click on render to disk and it'll pop up this little guy. Let it render a couple of frames, so we'll at least be able to see that there are a couple of frames. Yeah, so there you go. See, so there we are, we are rendering the images. Yeah, it's using my, see, there you go. Like you can see the 09 appearing. It's fairly clear. But yeah, so that's how you render sequences. Okay, so what I wanted to do was I wanted to do a small project where we also do a little bit of rendering. So you get an idea as to, how to set up a material and get like a final result. Because one of the cool things about Houdini has always been the ability to use attributes to affect shaders, which is like a big thing with Houdini, and which is why you can get like really cool effects at shader level. So I wanted to show you how easy it is to do that. So it's not a very complicated thing. So yeah, so that's basically it. So this is like the full project. So how to use attribute transfer and a little bit of fit range to do more complex copy stuff, and then how to set up a shader and how to bring in attributes to affect that shader and doing like a final render. Okay, I'm not going to render this, so I'll interrupt this right now. But yeah, there you go. So hopefully this will be regular again for a little while before I get back to work again at some point of time. But yeah, we'll do another modeling project, which is I want to do some kind of like a proper procedural model just to show you something interesting, and then I'll try and get towards more like dynamic stuff. Okay, so yeah, I don't really have a plan with this. Over time, if you want me to cover something, you can send me a request or like send me a message. If I'm not too lazy and if it's not too complicated, I'll try and cover it. Okay, so yeah, that's basically it.